the work that I do, and I think one of the reasons that I enjoy it truly so much, is because I believe in the power of choosing whether to be nice or polite to people.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Stacey Perlin. Previously, episode 1976 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 1 month, 1 day, 13 hours, and 45 minutes, plus or minus a few minutes, right? Stacey, that was done. This is now. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Angela. And yourself this morning?
I am as excellent as can be. It's such of a grand opportunity to connect with you. Come on, tell us, what's the new thing? How have things evolved from the last time we spoke?
Oh my gosh, I think we've all gone through a restructuring in the last couple of years, is a nice way to put it. Internally, which has meant there's been a really great evolution in the conversations. So still doing my card readings, still doing studying of astrology, have been able to really connect with some amazing mentors, seeing as some of the world's best are in Calgary, or in the Alberta area, which I didn't have any idea before that.
Wow.
I know, right? So it's been a really great opportunity. So I even did it. I did a talk on time, the differences and similarities between astrology, tarot, and our sense of timing.
That's amazing. You said in time, right? What do you mean by that when you say in time? And I'll tell you why I asked the question.
Absolutely, yeah. So the talk was entitled A Sense of Timing, strictly because a lot of what we do as readers or as psychics is coaching. And so it's important for us to show the linear's connections between those two professions. I feel that just like coaching, we can have a tendency to be advice givers. And so it's important for us to understand, if I was to tell somebody, or to speak to somebody about them moving forward on a next step, which is really my jam, right? I want to be able to move people forward. I can tell them, okay, well, you'll get this promotion in 3 months. They'll sit on their butt and not do anything for 3 months. But if I say, hey, over the next 3 months, you're really going to get over your hangups and you're going to make more conversations happen. So you're actually going to make some friends. And one of those friends is going to bring you forward as a potential promotion. So you've got 3 months of friendships to make,
Ooh, that's intriguing, though. So you're basically breaking it up into steps that would bring the end result over time, pun intended. Wow. That's
right?
Cool. The reason I ask is because the person that's going to be the episode before you, who I just spoke to, his name is actually Brian Syme. His first website, I think he said, was actually symetime.com, right? It's spelled SEIM. So I love to see the synchronicity that occurs on the podcast when I get in here for a day and start having conversations. So that was really cool to
100%.
see that. Yeah.
Not surprised.
Well, you're in the space, right? Definitely in the space. Ability to have difficult conversation was something you covered when we last spoke. And I marvel, even listening in preparation for this conversation, the way you seem to be, it feels as though it's like your mind is like the way you ride a bicycle, because your 2 legs are there. Of course, you're pedaling 2 pedals, but 1 gear wheel, and you get to where you're going. Does it feel like that when you're analyzing, looking at people, seeing, observing?
Absolutely, because the idea is that I mentioned briefly the psychic thing just because I've been doing more meditation and energy work. And the way I explain that whole discipline is that you're learning a language with a body part you've never used before.
Yeah.
And so the key is really observation, first and foremost. How do you feel? How aware are you of the environment? Because somebody who comes in feeling like a ton of bricks is probably going through something very heavy. It's funny, right? But that's literally how our brain works. We're like, okay, so if I want to understand how something's going on in somebody else's event or in their experience, we'll feel it in a physical way that mirrors how we understand that to work. That's why when we get an upset stomach, we're like, okay, what can't you handle? What can't you stomach?
I love how you do that. It's intriguing as well how you take a comical approach to something that's hurting individuals, and in so doing, it takes the edge off for the person who is going through the experience. Is that feedback that you've gotten as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a really great video from a brand called The School of Life that talks about the difference between being nice and being polite. And the work that I do, and I think one of the reasons that I enjoy it truly so much, is because I believe in the power of choosing whether to be nice or polite to people. And nice is that assumption that everybody is going through stuff that's either the same or worse than you. And we'll always want to make sure that we're considerate of them and their understanding and their processing. Polite is that whatever they're going through, they've got it handled, and you want to give them space to handle it. So both of them are very necessary and very appropriate in response to people going through very tough situations. The difference is understanding what they need. And that's why I don't try and do all that myself. I go, okay, my guides talk to their guides. Let's put it through on the cards. Give me a hand here. And that's how that relationship builds up, because I'll understand so much from just being observant in, again, understanding the energy and how that flows through me to them. And meditation is really great for that, right? We're just understanding what's happening so that we can better, I like to say we ascribe a signature to a certain effect, and then we can then attach that to meaning, again, creating language from nothing, right?
The intellectual side of you seems to be one that has connected with the spiritual side succinctly. When did that occur? Or is it something that you train and continuously train?
That's a really great question, actually. I continuously train. As you've observed, I have a giant brain, and it needs love and food, like all of us human beings and all of us functioning things. And so what I typically will do is these days, because the spirituality side of life has been so important to me, and again, that bigger than ourselves part of it, and it's so incredibly important to one of the books I have in front of me here is called The Dividends of Decency, How Values-Based Leadership Will Help Business Flourish in Trump's America. And the idea here is try to figure out how do we put value to just being good and to doing the right thing.
All right, my friend. A universal book and intuition. That was something we touched on when we last spoke. The intuition side of you, again, has been trained, and we see the adult version, right? Like we can see the biopic with you. We can see the hairdo, right? The updated version of the hairdo from the one I had before. When you look at the child, that child that was traveling all over, having conversations with people 10 times her age sometimes, right? Do you see that individual in the child as opposed to seeing the child in you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's an interesting aspect to that. When I was a kid, I used to draw pictures of this girl, like this lady. This was my perfect lady. I don't know what was up with her. And over the years, I remember looking at it and I just had stacks of drawings of this lady. And the other day I looked in the mirror and I realized that I was the lady in the drawing. I was like, right? Like, is that not a grounding situation?
Exactly.
It's, I mean, I've gone through some health scares for sure. Lots of life changes, lots of improvements. Feeling better than ever as I get, towards my 37th birthday.
Congratulations.
But thank you. Made it this far. It's to be able to bring your life to a place where your minimum operational capacity can allow that childlike glow and sparkle to show up in your eyes, I think is a blessing and a gift. Absolutely.
That's wonderful. For those that are listening, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Yes. So still best through the website, that's soulpathnavigator.com. And I do have daily YouTube card readings. So if they ever are just curious to get a sense of the energy of the day or to get a sense of my style, they can always just, there's links right in the website right to that YouTube channel as well. And they can subscribe and like there.
In the midst of awareness, there's a conversation that we sometimes file to the back or we have in the forefront of that cabinet of life. That conversation is the conversation of death, the possibility that you could die today or tomorrow. Is that something that you file in the back, or is it up in the front of your day when you start life?
I wake up and I'm like, thank God I'm alive. No. I've definitely been through those times, those months, those years. Oh gosh. I think these days, oh man, that's a good question. I feel like it's still at the front. I think that in order to create us, but it's funny because I think when we have a sense of urgency, we can move it to the back just to give ourselves a bit of a break. But it's important to have not that far away, because in that way it can be triggered in a healthy way by the conversations around you. There's a difference between a healthy trigger and a negative trigger. That's for sure.
Yeah, expand on that, please.
Well, I find that if we can, okay, so this is where I really geek out, because I wrote a paper called The Case for an Algorithmic Approach to Emotional Resilience. And I'm really trying to explore how to express my mentality that we are a little bit like a computer, for sure, and the way that our cognition and emotion systems work. And so our subconscious runs so many processes. It is ridiculous that we don't take better advantage of it. And so we can run underground programming by giving us those suggestions, right? So I'm one of those people that has posters everywhere all around my apartment. I like to be visually programmed and reinforced with the stuff I want to remember. And it's usually something that initially pisses me off because we're programming, right? And we want to start with something that we don't like. Can I change from something I don't like to building it into a habit for myself? That is like one of the best ways to test your operating capacity. And so one of the ones that I used over the years is a quote by Hermann Hesse that says, "Within you, there is a stillness and a sanctuary to which you can retreat anytime." The first time I saw that quote, I hated it. I thought there's no way that there could ever be a place that's quiet. And certainly not within me.
Wow. And now you believe.
And now a few years later, geez, I meditate every day, twice a day. Nuts, right?
That's intriguing. You are amazing. I do appreciate you passing by. Again, as well, I believe it to be so motivational and inspirational to hear the similarity, the authenticity as you, episode 1976, and you, whatever the number is today. It's really, really fascinating. You've not given up. Of course, you've had trials, you've had the ups and downs. Nevertheless, it's really interesting to hear that you've not given up. You've continued on your path. My friend, I appreciate you. Thanks for your service to humanity. Before we leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Just that you're fantastic, Angel Jones.
I appreciate that very much. I think the same of you, Stacey.
Never forget it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, amazing audience, Stacey Perlin. Thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.